Rabah unto the Most High. Thank you very much. Hallelujah. For all of his goodness, his kindness, his compassion that he shows upon us. We say Todah unto the Most High for you being here, those in the house here physically, and those who will be coming in on the platforms that we're on. Just come on in to Yah's house. It's going to be all right. It is truly a reckoning. If we really look at the words that we speak, and when we say, come on into Yah's house, the house of Yah, and it is a sacred place. It's a sacred place. It was a place where he would meet his people. And if it was a sacred place to meet Yasharel, and do you know there was only a selected ones who were actually going into the temple and doing the work in the ministry and into the holies of holies where he would show up once a year with the high priest. Just how special and how sacred that is. So what he has done was, instead of meeting them once a year in the holies of holies and meeting them in the temple just for the tribe of Levi, he did something greater than that, something that's a wonder. The Ruach HaKodesh, or the presence of Yahuwah, where is it at today? In us. Just the thought that when you study Torah and you see the power and the presence of Yahuwah, and then to realize what they had in antiquities, and I don't want to call it the old and the new, because when you start saying old and new, when you say old, you think that's done away with because you say new. Oh, we got something new, so that means the old must be done away with, which is not true at all. The old is still very much in effect today. In fact, if you look at a lot of religions and they make an attempt at understanding prophecy, because if you don't understand prophecy, then you're not going to understand what's about to happen on this earth and what's about to happen with his people. And the Roman religion cannot teach you prophecy, because they all my life that I've been in the Roman religion up until 2016, what I thought was we was going to disappear, go to heaven. We ain't got to worry about nothing down here. You ain't got to worry about nothing down here, because if you are down here, that means you lost out. You're going to be up in the Shamayim, and you won't even be looking at. I was even told you won't even see the horror and the tragedy and the chaos and the catastrophes that's going on the earth. All that, because when you see it, it's going to grieve you to your heart. So we're going to be up in the Shamayim. You ain't even going to see that. None of that is true. None of that is true. And so I was hit with, I want to get back to my original thought about the Most High Yah dwelling in his temple and where he is with us today. We'll get in that. But I was in a dilemma for a number of hours. I don't know how many hours I was in a dilemma, because I was seeking the Most High and asking him about all of those who grew up with that belief and that understanding, right? The holla down here, Luya up in the Shamayim. Can you scoot over? No, the camera. So I was kind of wrestling. I'm not saying the Ruach was wrestling, not like Jacob or anything. I was just in my thought process, in my meditation, and I was trying to, and I was asking Yah, just like, this is a dilemma for me, because up until 2016, I always thought and believed in the rapture. And there were so many of us, even to this day, there's a lot of us, and here in our local assembly, we've had some that have, since 2016, we've had some that's no longer with us. They transitioned to the other side. But most of them that transitioned to the other side still had that understanding that they were going to be raptured and taken up into the Shamayim. They're not going to be here for the tribulation. And you know the whole story because that's what they told us for all those years. And then we still have people today who still believe that have believed it for a number of years. So I just asking Abba, and because having the Ruach of Yahusha, right? The Ruach of Yahusha, it says when you get the Ruach HaKodesh, that's the Ruach of Yahusha, and then you're going to cry out, Abba, Abba. And you go to your Father. And just like Yahusha taught us how to pray, our Abba, which art in the Shamayim, the heavens. I mean, he taught us to pray like that, So just, going to the Father and just asking him, what about those who their whole life has believed that, even to this day, and you're teaching it and you're trying to tell them, and they still believe that. And some of them, I mean, I look around here now, we're no longer teenagers or in our 20s, so we've been Baruch with a number of years added on to us, but most of us can't really think longevity like somebody in their 20s. You know how it was when you were 20s, you felt invincible. I'm going to live forever, right? When you're in your 20s, you felt like that. I'm young. I'm in my 20s. I'm going to live. But when you get to where we are on this pace of life, then it's like, man, I don't have the longevity outlook like I did when I was a teenager. And so there's many of us that still believe that. And so I was just asking Yah, how do you either, do you just let them pass on with that belief? Do you let them just, if that's what they believe, let them believe it? Even though it's not going to happen. Now, why would I say that? Because for some people, that's their consolation. That's their peace. You know what I mean? A peace of mind. That's their, because what you believe, like we found out the other day, to believe in something, it's a pillar, right? It's a pillar in your life. This is the structure of this building or who I am. What I believe in is the very structure of me, who I am. It's a pillar in my life. So when you believe that, that is a pillar. If you take that pillar away, when Samson stood between the two pillars and he pushed the two pillars that upheld that Colosseum, whatever it was, I mean, all of it began to crumble down and into just rubble and stuff. And a lot of times when you start to move pillars in people's lives, that kind of happens, And so I was just asking, I said, what would you do? Almost, what do you want me to do? What would you do? Just let them go on and believe that, because it gives them some kind of peace of mind. It gives them a place of comfort. There's just, how it is. We were so scared. We didn't know. I don't know about y'all, but when I was a teenager, I didn't know if I was going to live to be 18, because I thought back then, the way my first pastor preached it so hard, I didn't think I was going. Now look where I'm at today. Look where we're at today. So I was like, do I just let them go on? Just let them go on and believe it. And then when they wake up, because why are we promised the resurrection? Let me ask you that question. There's the mic right there. Everybody got it. They can answer. There's a mic right there. You just got to turn on. Why do we believe? Why do we have hope of a next life? What gives us that hope? Huh? Okay. She answered that Yahusha died for us. Is that what gives us this hope? You know, even when people are about to expire, right? They're about to expire, then what is the consolation? What is the rest? What is the peace of mind that they have when they go to rest, when they go to the long sleep? What's the peace of mind that they have? Anybody?
First, you got to believe you've been obedient.
Did you turn your mic on? Got it. Okay.
First, you got to believe you've been obedient.
She must have you muted back there. All right. Is it on? They can't hear you. All right. Anyway, we're gonna go on. Yeah. Oh, you did hear him? Okay, we just didn't hear.
We're going to rise up and have a new life, new body, and just to be able to dwell with him and reign with him.
Okay. Okay. Because there was two things she said that I caught that actually is in here. But the reason why we have that consolation or that prize, that peace of mind,
He promised it to us.
that she said, one thing she said, rise up. And then another thing she said, a new body. So how do we know that, though? How do we know that? Why do you believe? Why do you even believe in that? Why do you even believe that?
Because of the process.
The teaching?
Yeah.
The scripture says it?
The process.
What does the scripture say? Okay, 1 Corinthians 15.
Yeah.
We're going to be changed in a moment, twinkling of an eye. Those who are dead in him is going to rise up, right? And the mortal must put on immortality. So that gives us hope and a peace of mind when we get ready to go to our long sleep. That I'm coming back, right? And the reason why we have that hope in us is because in that same 1 Corinthians 15 chapter, that same says, let's even go there so we can see it. The reason why we have that hope in us. First, huh? Okay, let's go. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 12. This is what gives us a peace of mind and assurance. 1 Corinthians 15 and 12. Right? What does it say? Now, if the Mashiach be preached that he what?
Rose from the dead.
Rose from the dead, how say some among you that there is no resurrection of the dead? Now, verse 13, but if there be no resurrection of the dead, then is the Mashiach not risen. And if the Mashiach be not risen, then is our preaching vain and your faith. So this is what gives us some consolation and some peace of mind, is because my Mashiach beat death. He rose from the dead. And as long as I'm in him, when it's time for me to go, I have that same hope. I have that same hope. This is something we could read all the time. We have to preach it. We have to have faith in it. And then verse 15, it says, yea, we are found false witnesses of Yahuwah, because we have testified of Yahuwah that he raised up Mashiach, whom he raised not up, if so be that the dead rise not. So I say that we read those scriptures is because that's what a lot of us have. We have that hope that at the time that trumpet is sound, whether you're in this dimension or the dimension that you're going to go to when you pass, you're going to hear that trumpet, you're going to come back. We believe that. And the reason why we believe that is because of Mashiach rose. He kicked death in the teeth and got on up out of there. Death got a taste of him and had to let him go. Had to put him, I can't do nothing with this man. 3 days after that. So death got a taste of our Mashiach, had to let him go. It says truth sprung up from the earth. So I believe that. I have faith in that. So when it's time for me to go to my long sleep, I ain't worried. I'm not worried. Yes.
Would you say that's why people, when they're dying, they don't have that, and then they try to get that before they die? We try to make their last confession, trying to get right, trying to make sure they got all their I's dotted and T's crossed.
Right. A lot of them do that.
Yeah.
A lot of them do that. Now, like we read the other day, you can live wicked all your life, but then at the end of your life, you can turn to him and live righteously. He's not going to remember all your wickedness. But as we were reading that, it said that they had to obey what is written, the truth. I mean, so that lets you know that there was some life to live yet. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that. When you look at Ezekiel, Yekazakal 18, where we read the other day, that was not a deathbed repentance, which a lot of times we think of deathbed repentance. Mm-hmm. I got to get it off my chest. I got to get all this out. I'm going to get it because I know I'm getting ready to go to my long sleep. So we want to get it all out. But when you read Ezekiel 18 chapter, those who turned to him, there was a space of time where they lived, because you're going to have to give an account for your life. So it has to be written in your book somewhere, mm-hmm. Not that his last breath he repented. No, I don't see that in Scripture, because when you understand Ezekiel 18, like we read the other day, when they turned unto him and they lived for him. They were witnesses unto him. There was a change in their life. And so, and we can revisit that if you want. I didn't plan on talking on that tonight. But, so I was wrestling with Abba in the Ruach. Not wrestling, but just asking and meditating, on, because there's still a lot of us. It doesn't matter what I say. Doesn't matter what other people say. The teaching can go on for a generation or so. The Roman religion has such a great root in Yah's people that there's a lot of things that you can teach and talk about and expound upon and enlighten. Preaching, when you say preaching is a public declaration. Preaching is not hooping and hollering. We don't, when it says Yahusha preached, that's because he went out into the public. It's a public announcement. It's a public address. We were doing more preaching when we did what? Street meetings. Remember we used to do street meetings? We'd be out there on the corner. That's preaching. That's preaching, because you're out in the public and you're pronouncing and you're speaking out in the public. No matter who's out there, who walks by, who drives by, whatever. We had our microphone, and that's teaching. When he says he was a teacher and he's a preacher was his public address. When you look at Sermon on the Mount, right? Sermon on the Mount, that's preaching. Now, if you go through there, I don't think he was, blessed are those that are pure in heart, because they're going to see God. I don't think he was doing that. No, I think it was a public, he was out in public, and he said, blessed are those who are pure in heart, because they're going to see Alua. I mean, that's what he was teaching like that, but he was out in public. But we mistake preaching for stomping, spitting, sweating, cadence, And some people just have a voice. Some of those preachers, they just have a voice. And they're able to use their voice to be very charismatic and draw a lot of people. And we call that preaching. It's the definition of what they call preaching in the days of Yahusha, and it's not the same definition that we use today. But you could do a lot of teaching on it, and some people, it's so rooted in them, it's a pillar in them, something that they believe that you're not going to pull out. They still believe it. So I asked Yah, I said, what? And it was just a comfort that just said, let them believe it. It was like, don't let them believe it. If that's what they believe. I mean, it is going to be manifest. What's going to happen? It's going to be manifest. And then people are going to realize. You got a lot of people that's going to come through the next dimension. You got a lot of people that are present today, and they're going to realize we've been misled. We've been misled. And that's when a lot of people are going to wake up, you know. You're going to see a lot of people waking up in the next year, 2 years, because you're going to see things. You guys know we're at the brink of war. I know a lot of us don't watch financial news and stuff, but I was watching Davos, the annual convention they have in Davos over there in Switzerland. And it's the Davos conference, and you have all of the world leaders on the economic and political arena. You know, a lot of those world leaders were there. But it's the global north. This is a kind of like an annual celebration for the global north, because you didn't see anybody from the global south. I think I seen one Chinese official that was there that spoke. I did listen to a lot of the speakers. I listened to our president, and for over an hour in his speech, and after he got done, I had to go read something. I had to go study something. I had to put some I had to put some knowledge and information back in my head. And the reason why I say that is because he just drained me he drains your intelligence. I don't know if you guys ever heard of I usually listen to our president, no matter who it is. I mean, I don't agree with them, but I'll listen to him. I'll listen to the State of the Union. It don't matter who's up there. I'll listen to them. I don't agree with them, you know, but I'll listen just because they're a world leader and stuff. But I tell you, this man is so unintelligent, and he's so arrogant. He is. You talk about narcissistic. I had to afterwards. Oh my goodness, let me get some information. Let me get back and start reading something I know is solid, of substance. You know, because it's like he drained me. Anyway, we have a lot of our warships that are surrounding or going over to Iran. I mean, now, we did that down in Venezuela. And he didn't send them down there just to, okay, boys, come on back. They had a plan. When you don't send that much force around a country, you don't send that much force to tell them to turn around and come back. I mean, just the cost to keep them there for a week or 2 weeks. I mean, it is very so they have a plan, and they're going to find out Iran is not Venezuela. You're dealing with something totally different now, and you're dealing with something that is biblical, and these are the Persians that is written in the scriptures, and so Trump is going to meet. This is going to get very ugly. It's going to get very ugly. A lot of people are going to die. I wouldn't want none of our sons and daughters to represent this country militarily. I wouldn't. I mean, I just wouldn't. And so, we're at a time that we have to understand there's some things that's going to happen, and you better prepare yourself. You need to prepare yourself mentally, spiritually, and maybe even physically, because you're not going to just poof and disappear like they've been telling us. Before tribulation comes, we're going to be out of here. You better buckle down. One thing you're going to have to really have a stronghold on, like we was talking about belief, who have believed our report, to whom is the arm of Yahuwah revealed. One thing that you're going to really have to buckle down on is going to be your faith. You're going to have to really hold on to your faith. And you're going to have to really believe. You're going to have to believe the scriptures in Torah. And like Job said, it's more than his necessary food. I mean, I have to eat, to survive physically. But his Torah and his word, that is more important to me than my breakfast in the morning, than my lunch, than my evening meal. His Torah, his word. And not only is it the word, but it's what you believe. What do I believe? What am I confirming? What is the pillars of my life? And we're going to have to really, get a grip on that. And because it's going to take, the prophecy talks about Jacob, and it says he's going to make it through this period. But it's not that he's going to go unpunished. There's going to be some punishment and we have been enduring some punishment. We have been going through some things. It says in Isaiah 40 and verse 1. Let's go there real quick. For Isaiah 40 and verse number 1. And he says, what does he tell them? Comfort ye, my people, saith your Elohim. Verse number 2, speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry unto her that her warfare right? Huh? That her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she hath received of Yahuwah's hand double for all her sins. And that's why Yahuwah's people are still, we have the opportunity for deliverance, for what they call salvation. We have the opportunity to be rescued. We do have that. But when you look at Yasharel as a people, Yaakov, Yasharel as a people, and I'm talking the whole body of Yasharel, which is scattered to the four corners. But when you consider them, they've had to pay double for their sins. And that's what he's saying here. But what we have hope in is that we're going to be pardoned. Right? Isn't that what it says in verse number 2? He says that her iniquity is pardoned. The iniquity we were put in this situation. And so we have hope now since our Messiah. It says here that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned. And so a lot of times when we speak unto Yasharel as a nation and we want to scold, and you know how it is when you have children, and you just want to when they do something wrong, you just want to rip them to, especially when you know better than that. Or they deliberately do something, like the nation of Yasharel did against the Most High Yah. I'm going to say this, and we talked about how Yahuwah met the people in the temple, the holies of holies, once a year, right? The high priest and everything, and how we have him. That Ruach is the earnest of the Ruach. We have where? Like Paul says, we have this treasure where? In earthen vessels. What they expect. But even though we have the earnest of the Ruach, this treasure in earthen vessels, they seen more and heard more than what we have. There was a presence with Abba Yahuwah when Yasharel was a nation, when they're all together as a nation, there was a presence of Yahuwah that you don't, and I know people say, I got the Holy Ghost, I got something better than them and everything. They heard his voice from the Shamaim. And all these, everybody who talking about we got it so much better in there. Have you heard him? Because number one, he didn't speak no English. They seen. How many of y'all could look out over the mountain and see fires of chariots all over the mountains, ready to go to battle? We ain't seen nothing like that. There's a lot of things that we read about in the Hebrew sacred scriptures. We haven't experienced. But yet we say we got the Ruach HaKodesh, so what we have is greater than what they have. If that is the case, then any tarnish on your life is an insult unto the Most High. Anything you've done wrong should have brought immediate. Do you know some of them died immediately? The 15th chapter of Numbers, when that brother broke Shabbat, and they told Moses about it, Moshe says, well, let me go and inquire of Abba Yahuwah. Let me go inquire of Yahuwah. Says, and what was the answer to Moses? Stone him. That was a capital punishment. Take him out and stone him. How many times have we and Yasharel as a whole in the four parts of the world have broken the Sabbath, and yet he gives them mercy and a space of grace? Because back then, and then we turn around and say that we got more. Well, if you got more, one tarnishment on your record can get you killed. Because you have more than what they had. They died. In the book of Acts, we have, when they came to the apostles, and we have, who was it, Ananias and Sapphira? One tarnishment. What happened? They spoke a lie. They lied. A simple lie. And their life was taken. But you got more. There are some things that we have said and we have spoken that we're going to have to give an account for at the end. All these preachers, all these folks, there are some things that they've spoken. You're going to have to give an account at the end. Because when you brag and talk about how big you are, you speak at the big gate, people die by the thousands for what you get away with. And you got more? I think we should have a little bit more reverence unto the Most High and come into his presence. Abba, Yah, if I've transgressed, if I've done anything against you, Abba, if I've transgressed, if I did something ignorantly, I don't know, I'm repenting, I'm turning from it, forgive me. Because for us to say we have more than what they have, and yet we keep doing the things that we do. We say that when you get the Holy Ghost, so the Ruach HaKodesh, right, you got the spirit of Yahuwah and Yahusha living in you, right? And they didn't have that back in that day. They didn't have, they did not have it, the Ruach in them. Now, the presence of Yah was all around them. They see, when you read through the history, you go back to the beginning, Mount Sinai, they seen some mirror, they seen all kind of stuff, which will make you wonder, how could you not believe him? I mean, how could you go into idolatry when you heard his voice come from the shop? You were scared and told Moses, you talk to him and whatever he says, we'll do it. You speak to him and so he don't speak to us. But we say we got something greater than that. But yet, when they sinned, they died. When we transgressed, we're still living. And there's times when we know we sin. It ain't no ignorant sentence of ignorance. There's times when we know it, and we still do it. In Romans chapter 1 and verse number 32, and this is all you Holy Ghost filled people, who knowing the judgment of Yahuwah, that they which commit such things are worthy of what? And you might say, what is he talking about? Well, you have to go back to verse number 29. Let's go back to verse number 29. Being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness. This is what he's talking about. Those who commit those things, you're going to see what? What are you going to see? Those who commit those things, you're going to see what? Because he says it in the last verse. What? The judgment of Yah, right? Okay. So everybody who's unrighteous, fornicators, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness. Those who are malicious. Full of envy. And I'm telling y'all, I've seen a lot of envy. I've seen a lot of envy. Full of envy. Murder. Not only physical murder, but what other murder is he talking about? Huh? When you hate your brother. Huh? Yeah, hatred. I mean, that's the way because we don't see like he sees, but when you have, because he tells us, he gives us a process when you have aught against one another. There's a process to go through so that you can be cleared of the matter. But when you allow it to fester and grow, and then it turns into hatred, and you hate your brother, you're the same as you're going to get the same penalty as a murder. You might as well don't kill him, but in the eyes of Yah, you're going to get the same judgment, same fate as a murderer, simply because you hate your brother. Right? Murder, debate. I always got debate. Deceit, malignity, whisperers. I see a lot of whisperers. Have you ever thought when people are kind of speaking to one another and then you show up and everybody just, oh, did I interrupt something? You know, and a lot of times they're whispering, they're saying things that they don't want to say publicly. And it might be you. I heard something at Davos at this conference. I heard something. And usually when I hear certain sayings, I got my phone and I'll just repeat it because I want to remember it and everything. But I'm trying to think, who was this? Who was the speaker? I can't recall who the speaker was, but he says, if you're not invited to the table, then you're on the menu. And I thought, man, that's so. Yeah, he says, if you're not invited to the table, then you're on the menu. You know, and sometimes when you hear people, and there's whisperers and stuff, and then sometimes in your ruach you can feel, yeah, I'm probably on their menu. I'm the one they're talking about. You know, and then everybody's button up, whispers. People who speak behind your back, and a lot of times if they've got to whisper things behind your back, 9 out of 10 times it's not good. It's not good. Whisperers, backbiters, haters of Yah. Now the haters of Yah, these are the ones where he says, if you love me, you're going to keep my commandments. So if you don't love me, either you're a lover of Yah or you're a hater. That's how he sees it. Either you're a lover of me or you're a hater. I don't got to keep those commandments. I don't know what's wrong. Y'all crazy. It's grace, faith now. Folks follow that guy that stuck all those edicts on the church door in Rome. What Luther? John, was it? What was it? Martin Luther. Martin Luther, and he talked about, now he wasn't even an Israelite, never born again of water and spirit, not an Israelite, and he says that he's justified by faith alone. Just as if I didn't do it. All that hatred towards Yah, just as if you didn't do it. Justified by faith alone. And you'd be surprised how many Israelites, those in the Roman religion, that still believes that. Because Yahusha says, if you love me, you're going to keep my commandments. If you don't keep my commandments, then I'm looking at you as a hater. We call people haters. Don't you know how we use that nowadays? Hater. We use it kind of loosely too. And it's more cliche or something, right? Yeah. We call people haters. You know, you might, I mean, we're different kind of people, and there's certain things we like, certain things we don't like. Now, I might not like something, don't mean I'm a hater. I just don't like that, you know. Oh, you're a hater. I'm not a hater. I'm totally against effeminate men and homosexuality. I'm totally against that. Oh, you're a hater. No, I don't hate you. But that act of sin is abomination, or something that Most High Yah extremely hates. It's not something that he abhors, but it's something he extremely abhors. Because he didn't make man to be with a man. He didn't make a woman to be with a woman. He made man, and then he made woman for man. That's how it's supposed to be. So anything contrary to that, oh, you're just a hater. No. Let's listen to what he says. Haters of God, haters of Yah, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of because I've been disobedient. I mean, I love my father and mother. I've always have. I still love them today. You know, because I'm supposed to honor them all the days of my life. It says all the days of my life. So as long as I'm living, I love my father and mother. Doesn't mean I was always obedient unto them. I was not always an obedient child. You know, disobedient. And the penalty for being disobedient to parents was what in Torah? Stoning. Death. Death. You can't come back from that. And so we look at this and go, oh, man, so we want to be forgiven. I got to be forgiven of this. All right? Disobedient to parents. Listen without understanding. Because a lot of times we say, wait a minute, I just don't understand. He says without understanding. Wow. I would be asking Abba, what must I understand? I don't want to be like this, so give me an understanding. And to understand something is like when that light bulb comes on, that light, oh, now I get it. Now I understand it now. When I understand something, I don't have to ask the question, why? When I understand something. Because to understand something, then you know why. I know why. Because a lot of times, especially when we're raising children, and it's not just the rod, correcting with the rod, which you are supposed to, but you want to put in them an understanding of why you're doing it, so that when they understand that, well, I know why I'm not supposed to do that. Well, I know why. Covenant breakers. Who did he make a covenant with? Yasharel. He made a covenant with Yasharel. He didn't do the Egyptians. He didn't make a covenant with none of the sons of Ham. He made a covenant with Yasharel. And those are the ones that broke his covenant. Isn't it interesting? He's saying this now in a letter to the saints at Rome. And he's saying this now. Covenant breakers. Without natural affection. Implacable. Sometimes we're just implacable. Can't please them. You know anybody like that? There's just nothing you can do to please them. Let's look up that word implacable. Let's get a good, let's make sure we have an understanding on that. Can we look that up? Implacable. G786. Without what? Is it up there? Yeah. Literally without libation. So we've got, can you go on Google and look up libation? This is without libation. Akoti, can you look that up? Just go to Google and look up libation. Yeah, we got believe up there. Go to put in at the top there. Yeah, let's look up libation. Let's see here. Libation. Is it up there yet? A libation. Oh, you got it. Good, good. A ritual pouring of a liquid like water, wine, or milk as an offering to honor deities, spirits, or ancestors, symbolizing gratitude, remembrance, or a request for blessings. Wow. Y'all see that? So when we look at that, somebody that is implacable is somebody that doesn't offer up any libations. They don't honor Abba Yah, because it talks about deities, spirits, ancestors. They don't honor, symbolizing gratitude. There's no gratitude. There's no remembrance. And there's no request for a blessing. So what they would do, what comes to my mind is Jacob. He did a libation where he poured out a drink offering or libation unto the Most High. He was asking for a blessing. And so here it's the pouring out of water, wine, or milk as an offering to Abba Yah, right? Symbolizing gratitude, remembrance, or request for blessing. So here it says in Romans it says you're implacable. You don't do libations without libation. Because I don't think I ever did a libation. Have y'all? You poured out any liquid water, wine, or milk? And I think they would use wine because they even had drink offerings, which you would pour out the wine. You didn't drink the wine. You poured out the wine as a libation unto the Most High. And that's what you were doing. You were showing honor. Yes.
Like on a TV show when gang members and somebody dies, gets killed, then they would pour it in a glass and then pour it out on the ground and say some words.
That's a libation.
Yeah.
That's okay. A libation. Yeah. Yeah, because I think I've seen it on TV, but I've never done one or did anything like that. And you just have to walk in knowledge, because what you're doing is, like when it says ancestors there, Abba Yah, remember our ancestors. And, we have to know who we're going to, because it does say deities. Well, we know who our deity is, or you should know who your deity is. You said Lucifer earlier. That's a deity. That's a deity, but he's not ours. Our deity his name is Yahuwah, Yod-He-Ud-He. I know his name, Yod-He-Ud-He. Yod-He-Ud-He is our deity. So anybody else, so if I do a libation, it would be unto the Most High. It could be unto our ancestors. Like it says there, Abba Yah, forgive our ancestors, or like, somebody who just died. This is poured out over him. Give his children a blessing. It could be that. It's a prayer or something you offer up, Question? Akoti, you got a question? Okay. Unmerciful. Did that answer your question? Or yeah, okay. Unmerciful, who knowing, now this is the last verse, who knowing, and I think we all know what unmerciful is. I mean, we have to express mercy. When I study Torah, there's the weightier matter of Torah is what? There's three things he says in Matthew 23:23, when he talks about the weight of Torah. The weightier things of Torah is what? Faith, mercy, and judgment. Judgment, mercy, and faith. So when you study Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and you study the history of the kings and everything, you're going to see judgment, mercy, and faith. That's what you're going to see, because that's the weightier matter of Torah. That's the weight of Torah. So we shouldn't go through Torah, understanding Torah, and then don't have no mercy, especially for our neighbor. You got no mercy for her. Because if you don't show no mercy, he ain't going to show no mercy to you when you're called up for judgment. Oh, you weren't merciful? Abba Yah might say, well, why should I be merciful unto you? You didn't show no mercy. So unmerciful. Now listen to verse 2. Who knowing the judgment of Yah, that they which commit such things are worthy of death. You're worthy of death. Now, there's things that we've done. If you go back and list all these, look at that list, there's probably some things you've done in there. And the judgment on that is death. Death. But we start pleading for mercy, like King Daud did, right? In the 51st chapter of Psalms. First thing he said is, have mercy upon me, O Yah, according to the multitude of your tender mercies. Of your loving kindness. I think that's in there too. Your loving kindness and your tender mercies. Have mercy on me. Before you even start judging me, please, because I know there's an abundance of loving kindness and tender mercies. And that's what I'm pleading on. And so when we study that, we understand the weightier matter of Yah. One of the weightier things of Yah, even though he's judgment, but one of the weightier things, another thing is he has mercy. He does have mercy. Because when you look at this list, I see a few things on this list I did. But you have mercy on me, because notice what he says, knowing the judgment of Yah, that they which commit such things are worthy of death. Listen, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. That's what's going to get a lot of people. That's going to get a lot of people. Because we go, I didn't. Yeah, I did. I did. I know I did. Yeah, but you found pleasure in them who did it. A lot of times, even our entertainment, a lot of times, because we start to find pleasure in those who do such things. And we got to be careful. That's why King Daud says, I ain't going to put no evil thing, what? Before my eyes. He said, I can't do it. And the reason why King Daud couldn't do it, because he knew his heart. And that we have to know ourselves. There's just some things I know that's going to get me in trouble. I just know it's going to get me in trouble. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Why can't you do it? Oh, you a grown man. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. It's not profitable for me. I know me. I know if I connect or if I do that or whatever it is, I know that it's going to take me to the edge and I'm going to fall off. I'm going to drop off. Because I know me. I know my heart. I know my spirit. So then I refrain. There's some things I got to step back from that. Ain't nothing illegal about that. Just can't do it. No, we can't have pleasure. I don't get high, but man, I find it awful entertaining when I see him high. Because, man, I tell you, man, he's fun, big fun, all laughs. I mean, now, I ain't touching it, but I think he's a character when he does. And I'm just laughing, and somebody's getting stoned out of their brain. And, that old movie, Up in Smoke. Y'all remember that one? He had a big old, that big old joint. It was like this. The whole car. See, I'm laughing at that. Richard, are you having pleasure in that? Oh no, he was wrong. That's not entertaining to me. But see, at a time we find that entertaining. We find it entertaining. You got an uncle that you love to see drunk because he makes you laugh? Or a kinfolk or somebody, and you just get a kick out of it. Or somebody is doing something evil, wicked, and you go, ooh, I wish that was me. It could be, when single people, and they see somebody with somebody, They see what their friends are doing. Man, I wish I was doing that. And so they start to see that, oh man, that's pleasurable. That's got to be a lot of pleasure. Because it says here, they have pleasure in them that do them. Is that what it says? That's what it says in my book. I don't know. They didn't commit the act, but it was very entertaining and pleasurable unto them. Now, the point is because you say you have something that they didn't have. When you go into Israelite antiquities and you see the history, you see Mount Sinai, you see the giving of Torah, you see the temple, the holies of holies. We celebrate it once a year. We're supposed to remember it. It's got to be a remembrance for us. Yom Kippur, the holies of holies. We have to remember that. I mean, we're not going through that, but we have to remember it. It's something that we're supposed to remember and commemorate. The point I'm trying to make is everybody that says they have more than what they have, do you know what you're saying? You're putting more on you than what was put on them. Because you say you have more. I've got something greater. I got the Holy Ghost. They didn't have it back then. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, start at verse number 19. Oh, let's go to verse 17. Is that up there? Let's start at verse 17. Therefore, if any man be in the Mashiach, he's what? New creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. And all things are of Yod-He, Ud-He, Yahuwah, Alua, Yahuwah, who hath reconciled us to himself by Yahushua Mashiach, and have given to us the ministry of reconciliation. So in verse number 18, let's look at that word, reconciliation. Can we pull that down? It's G 2643. G 2643. Is it up there? G 2644 or 2643? Is it up there? Okay, let's look at that. Exchange, figuratively, adjustment. That is restoration to what? Restoration to the divine favor. And, he chose restoration to an atonement, basically to be restored. A restoration back to your most favored status. Right? So he's given us the ministry of reconciliation. Verse number 19, to wit, that Yod-He, Ud-He was in the Mashiach, reconciling the world unto himself, not imputing their trespasses unto them, and have committed unto us the word of reconciliation. So you've been restored. You've been restored back. We used to sing a song. How'd that go now? The old account was settled long ago. The old account was settled. That's that restoration. That sometimes the old songs come back to you. So sometimes he just, the old account was settled long ago, down on my knees. Sometimes them songs come back. But it's reconciliation. He reconciled us, right? And he did it through the Mashiach. In verse number 20, now then we are ambassadors for the Mashiach, as though Yod-Heh Ud-Heh did beseech you by us, we pray you in Mashiach's stead, be ye reconciled to Yod-Heh Ud-Heh. For he hath made him to be what? He was made, for he hath made him sin for us, who knew no sin. Where are you going? Where are you going with all this? You got no excuse. We don't have no excuse. He's not going to tolerate sin. He's not going to do it. For he hath made him sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be the righteousness of Yod-Heh Ud-Heh in him. So if we have more than what they have, then we should be more righteous than them. And if we have more than what they had, why do we make the mistakes that we make? Why? And if we have more than what they have, who is held to a higher standard? Which, like he said in Romans chapter 1, without understanding. See, we should know better. There's just some stuff we just should know better. And that's what he's talking about, without understanding. He said, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, y'all. Don't think your ignorance is going to be a bliss. Don't think your ignorance is going to get you by. Because he says in Acts 17:30, at one time he did what? He winked at ignorance. I ain't winking no more. Because you got more. So if the judgment was on them and they had less than what we have, we got more than what they have, and many of us think we're going to skip judgment. A lot of us do. It's in our roots. It's in our, hey, you're going to disappear. You're going up to the shaman. You got nothing to worry about. That's what they tell us. You got folks that are covenant breakers and think they're going to heaven. We don't see it like Yah sees it because we're human. But he tried to impress it upon his people. You made a covenant with me. I expect you to keep your half. I expect you to keep your end of the bargain. Even out in the streets, a lot of times, when you make a covenant or something and you don't keep your end of it, a lot of times it ends up what? In the streets, what happens? You get beat down, you get killed. You don't keep up your end of the bargain? We agreed to this. And you're not going to keep up your end of it now. So if that happens, what do you think about Abba? Because I know, and for me, and that's why in almost all my prayers, Abba, Yah, please forgive me. If there's something I've done, please forgive me for that. I don't want to be walking around thinking I'm all the, and there's marks against me. Abba, you got to mark them. Is there? I want to know. I don't want to keep repeating it. If I'm doing something wrong, because I know a lot of us, we're going to be asking for Yah's mercy. When this thing ends up, we're going to be asking for Yah's mercy. Huh? Huh? Let's go in the same chapter. Let's go up to verse number 10. Same chapter. Okay, let's say verse 9 and then 10. 2 Corinthians 5, 9, and 10. Wherefore we labor, and I know there's a lot of people in the Roman religion say you ain't got to do no works. Faith alone. No works. And they call him James, but his name is Jacob. Jacob says faith without works is dead, being alone. You can't just have faith and no works. Don't believe that in that Roman religion where all you got to, I got faith, that's all I got to have. No, you got to have some works. So he says here, wherefore we labor that whether present or absent, we may be accepted of him. And then verse number 10, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of the Mashiach. All of us. And what's going to happen? When you see it, because see, a lot of folks think they just going to disappear and go to Chamayim. And for some people, I can't get it out of them. They still believe. He said, just let them go. What came upon me in my ruach was comfort, just like, let them go. If somebody believes that, and it's a pillar in their life, and they believe that, you just got, okay. It's not that I haven't said it. I've said it, taught it, read through. We're going to be here. You're going to have to deal with the prophecies of this book. And, wow, that's y'all. I ain't going to be here. I'm going to heaven. All right. I'm trying to warn you. Because ain't nobody going to heaven, especially, and the ones who say it are the ones who break his commandments all the time. This is what gets me. This is what gets me. We believe that Yahuwah was manifest what? In the flesh. We believe that, right? He was manifest in the flesh. So when I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I'm reading and I'm listening to Yahusha speak, who's speaking? Yod He Ude, right? He's speaking. So if he's telling you to keep his commandments, isn't that Abba telling you to keep his commandments? So you go around and say, I don't have to keep no commandments, and I'm still going to make it. I mean, the literacy in that, it's like, wait a minute. You're telling me that Yahuwah spoke through Yahusha, and that what Yahusha is saying is the words of Yahuwah because they're one and the same. And he's telling you got to keep his commandments, just like he told them in the Old Testament. Then you're telling me that I don't have to do that because that was them now. Now I'm under the sun. Don't really make no sense. It don't make no sense. So Yah put judgment on people who broke his commandments. Then he shows up in his son and telling you, oh, you don't have to keep the commandments. They're done away with. Even though Yahusha never said that. But that's what they believe. They believe that the commandments and everything was done away with in the Son. Now that the Son has come, Yahusha, I don't have to worry about anything that's written in the Old Testament. None of that's to me or not. I don't have to read it. I don't have to study it. No, that's because Yahusha's here now. And he's delivered me from Torah. And that in itself, when you think about it, is lunacy. Because how can you believe that Yahuwah was manifested in the flesh? What you're saying is, well, Yahuwah wanted it then, but he don't want it now. What he expected of his people then, he's not expecting that now. No, the Son has come. It makes him double-minded. He's actually got two. He's double-minded. Yah's double-minded because he killed them for it, but he ain't going to kill us for it. Ananias and Sapphira lied against the Holy Ghost one time, and it cost them their life. One time. Not constantly. One time, and it cost them their life. But we say, ain't no commandments. Because the 9th commandment is, thou shalt not bear false witness. That's lying. That's a commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness. That's lying. And they lied against the Ruach HaKodesh, and it cost them their life instantly. But then we got Abba Yah of the old, and I hate saying old and new, but Abba Yah of the old, and then Yahusha of the new. One and the same, but expecting two different expectations of his people and two different outcomes. That Roman religion, I'm telling you, they've really tripped up a lot of us. But we're at that day now where he is waking his people. And it could be, if you're not awakened, it could be that you're not his people. I haven't got all that figured out yet, but he is awakening his people. And he does tell them, you got to return. Return what? You got to return back to me. You got to come back to me. That's what he says in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse number 3 and 4. He said, when that happens, I'm going to come get you. So Roman religion don't want you to return. This nation don't want you to know who you are. Other nations don't want you to know who you are. They don't want you to return. Because they know, and there's another nation, over there, and their small nation. They know who you are, but they don't want you to return. They don't want you to know it because they know the power. Y'all know if them people wake up and return back to you, y'all know what's going to happen? You're going to see the powers of the heavens going to be shaken. He already said it. Powers of the heavens going to be shaken. We're going to see all kind of wonders and it's going to blow people's mind. He said people's hearts going to fail them for fear. So let's not let them go back, because it says in Isaiah, I think it's the 42nd chapter, it says nobody's crying out, restore my people. Restore. Because we know that if once they get restored, it's all over. It's all over once they're restored. So we don't want them to be restored. The Roman religion would say, I think let's go to Isaiah. I think it's 42. Let's look at 42, verse 21 and 22. Isaiah 42, 21, 22. And he says, Yahuwah is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. Notice now, when we read in Corinthians, when we're it says in him was no sin, he was made sin for us, who knew no sin, that we might display to the world the what? 2 Corinthians 5, and I think it's 21. We just read it. The righteousness of Yod-Heh Ud-Heh. We have to show forth the righteousness of Yod-Heh Ud-Heh, right? Yahuwah is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will extinguish the law. What? No, he's going to extinguish it. The Roman religion is telling us that, no, the law is done away with. He's extinguishing it. That's not what Scripture says. That's what y'all say. It's not what Scripture said. he will magnify the law. And then after he magnifies it and make it what? His law is honorable. You better get that out of my face. There's a preacher that says, get the law out of here. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Because really, when people say that, they gaslight, they really don't know what they're talking about. They're really in a state of ignorance. Because nobody would say, get his law out of here. Nobody would say that. Unless, of course, you're not an Israelite. Could be. Huh? No, I wouldn't say that. Well, when you look at 1 Yochanan 4:1, huh? Ignorance. Yeah. 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 Because the law teaches you what sin is. So when I study Torah, I know what sin is. Y'all don't like that. He don't like nobody going against. When he tells you what sin is, and then you say, "Oh, ain't nothing wrong. I can still do that." He don't like that. He don't like that. All right. So he says here, and make it honorable, right? But this is a people robbed and spoiled, and that spoiled don't mean you get your way. You know how we spoil kids, we give them everything. That's not what that spoiled means. That spoiled means everything's been taken from you. When in the Torah, when it talks about they spoiled their enemies and everything, they took all of their jewels, sometimes they took their women, their children, they spoiled them, right? They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. There is a prison industrial complex. I don't know, I might be making it up. But there's a road to the prison house for a lot of our youth. They start them off in elementary. They can tell, in elementary, they can tell which of our sons will end up incarcerated. And there's a pathway. By the time they get to middle school, there's a pathway for them to get to the prison house. For us to be a minority in this country, but majority in the prison house? Crime Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton came up with that crime bill. And one of the authors of it was Joe Biden. And it was an inroads into the prison houses. From middle school, for our young men, there was a pathway for them to go into the prison house. They wanted to fill up the prison house with our young men. People invested in prison houses and got paid by the government. I know one person, I don't know him personally, but I was shocked to find out Michael Jordan had invested in prison houses. He wasn't the only one. There's a lot of them. They was going after these people with money. Hey, government will pay you. We fill up these prisons. We're going to build these prisons and house so many thousand of prisoners, and for each one of them, there's a kickback because the government goes into there and it gives you. So they invested into it, and the government kicked them back money. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. Notice now, they're hid there. They are for a what? You're just praying on them. And none of them are delivered. For a spoil, and nobody is saying what? Restore my people. Nobody is saying restore my people. Now, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, murder and all those capital, I'm not saying that you need to be incarcerated, because I think you do. Take them off the street. If you doing crimes, but what they do a lot of times is put them in an environment to where they can't help themselves. There's no help for them. There's nobody trying to, because it says here, what do? You're just praying on them. They're a prey to you.
There's no father in the home, and the mothers are working 2 jobs, and the kids are raising themselves.
Yes.
So there's, anything they want, they see, they get it, because all they can think about is, how else am I going to have these things that everybody else has?
Yeah.
Yasmin, when she was younger, I had a hard time trying to get her to understand that you cannot just take what belongs to somebody else. She just couldn't figure it out. She was like, well, why can't I? How come I can't go in the store and something be on the floor and I can pick it up and walk out the store with it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, but it doesn't work that way. And she just couldn't get it right in her head.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people put in that situation. They create the environment, or they create the theater, and they just prey on them. If I put you in a certain environment or theater, I know you're going to commit a crime. And when you commit that crime, I'm right there. Because I know you're going to do it. Because there's a lot of psychology behind what they do. They intend. We can go into a lot of things, but you can go into a lot of the neighborhoods and the areas of town where we're going to keep all of them right here, this certain block, they used to redline and everything. Going to keep them all right there. And we ain't going to give them no jobs. We're going to flood. In Chicago, they got guns on the streets, ammunition, and it's like, now I know how much a gun costs, 9mm, or maybe even these assault rifles. You got to have some money. Those assault rifles, you ain't getting them under $1,000. They're not a good one. I mean, you're going to spend some money on that. How did they get them? They're on the streets. How did they get those 9s, those Glocks? You know how expensive a Glock is? Now, these folks ain't got no jobs. Well, they're running drugs. Where'd they get the drugs from? Huh? A lot of them are stolen. Yeah. And some of them, now, because I heard that they find boxes, like on the railroad tracks and stuff like that. Yeah. Up in Chicago, they find boxes. It's like, ooh, man, look what we got. Who dropped the box off there? And it's all, so when you give them this dream and all this bling, and then they have no jobs, and the only way out is drugs or gangs or death, I know what you're going to do. I know what you're going to do. That's why it says here, they're just to pray. We're just to pray to the system. They're systematically doing it. I know they're systematically getting the man out of the house. I experienced that right here in little small town USA. Because I had a family, and I was going from jobs and trying to find jobs. I eventually got 2 part-time jobs and stuff, and got to the point where we didn't have no food, and went down there to get help, and the lady at the ADC office says, we can't help you as long as you're in the house. Now, if you get out of the house, now your wife can come down here and apply for it. We'll give her the check. Systematic. That's systemic. And how many people Ninja, you got to get out. How many people say that? Right. You got to get out, because I want that check. So you get the man out of the house.
Especially if he's not working and he can't get a job.
Yeah.
Because you're, like you said, the wrong address. You're in the wrong neighborhood. They're not going to hire you.
No. A lot of times they see your name come across there. And where you're from. And once you show up, yeah, you already got a mark on you. Sometimes, Yah shows mercy, and we get in certain positions and things like that. There's some people who break through that ceiling, but for the mass majority, as a nation, now you do have certain percentage that are able to get out. and they climb the corporate ladder. They're able to be successful and make money. You do have those, but when you talk about as a whole, as a nation, because even with Israel, when you talk about the nation, there was still some people who were righteous, living right and everything. But as a nation, he already put judgment on them as a nation. Even when they went into captivity, Nehemiah wasn't a transgressor. He was elevated to the king's cupbearer. He was a faithful. Ezra was a priest. He was faithful. But when you look at him as a nation, he had already broken covenant with them. They was already under judgment and punishment as a nation, even though you had some that was able to rise up. Because Nehemiah, in his position, where he would, is like somebody working in the White House. And we've had people work in the White House. Oh, man, they climbed up and got that high up to the king. That's how Nehemiah was. And some of the other ones, even Daniel and the other one, we see where they were. As a nation, Israel was being judged, but you did have some that rised up and was able to and that's the same way today. Because some people say, well, look at Michael Jordan, look at some of these other ones. Well, yeah, you look at their skill and their talent, what they're able to do, but he doesn't represent the whole nation. They don't represent the whole nation. So you do have some that are successful that get out, but when you talk about the nation of people, you see and it says here, they're a prey and nobody's there to deliver. And then therefore a spoil and nobody is saying, restore Yah's people, restore them. Nobody's saying that. All right. Any questions or comments? Oh, yeah, I pray all the time. Yeah, wake up, Jacob. Wake up your people, that they can return unto you. Because that's what he says, like in Isaiah chapter 10, he talks about only a remnant's going to return. So wake up, Jacob. Those who are part of that remnant will return to you. Because that's what's going to happen. All of Yasharel's not going to make it. They're not all, I found out I'm an Israelite. Because if we got something that's better than what they had back then, he's going to expect more of us. And the righteousness of Yod-Heh-Ud-Heh has to be seen in us. Which means it's not just waking up. It's living. Yeah, you got to live right. I can wake up and still be a sinner. Well, it talks about those who are sinners, you're going to perish. There's no hope for a sinner. It says that. There ain't no hope for a sinner. I'm awake and I'm an Israelite. I'm still keep doing, still hustling, still ain't married with all kind of women, still popping babies, ain't marrying no mamas, and doing drugs, slinging dope, hustling. But I'm awake and Israelite. No, you got to change. You got. Now, if you awake, you gonna want to come. Yeah, you want to come out of that sin.
Well, even on the other side, we believe that on the other side. When I came in here, I had to change, because
there has to be a change.
Yeah, because I want to be my wife, but I didn't want to change. And then Sister Solomon, they got her. If he don't want that booger, don't want to be right, then he can't be over here. I had to change.
Yeah. There has to be a change.
Yeah, I had to change, man.
And that's what we read, right? The new creature. Anybody be in the Mashiach? They're a new creature. I'm not the same person. I can't be. Because when you read, there is going to be judgment, and we all have to face them, all of us. And we're going to be judged. Yes.
But when they keep telling them that all you have to do is confess your sin, then you're okay, then how do they stop? Because they're not getting the full understanding of that. You have to confess and forsake.
Right.
And all they're doing is just, I did it again type thing.
Yeah.
And they're not making any changes in what they're doing to stop.
That's the deception.
Yeah, because it says in Proverbs, he that confesseth and forsaketh shall have mercy. Those are the ones that don't get mercy. Not just the confessing and keep living. Yeah, it's not just the confession, but it is the forsaking. And then you got to get to the point where, like it says in 1 John, that, see, the word has to live. When it says they won't sin because of the word, that's because the word lives. It's alive. It's not dormant. It's not dead. The word, because the word is life. It has to live in you. If the word is living in me, I'm not going to sin. I'm not. I can't, because the word is alive. But if there's no word in you, you'll sin. Yes.
You know what this lady said today at work? She said, what? She said, I'm just going to sin all my life, and then when I get there, I'm just going to ask him to forgive me. I said, what?
No.
Yeah. She said, she said, I mean, you can hear people because they'll just strike up a conversation about, JC, and this is what they believe about JC, and, so I'm listening there, I'm going to hear them, and this lady says, I tell you right now, I'm just going to sin all my life, and then when I see him, I ask for forgiveness. I'm like, what?
No, because see, that's the misunderstanding. And maybe we need to go over Ezekiel 18 again, because it's the ones that had turned and lived.
Yeah.
They turn and they live. So there's got to be a life to live.
Yeah.
And oxygen, he can take your oxygen right out. You ain't got a chance. You ain't got no time. Especially a heart like that, because he hears everything. He hears everything. So a heart like that could be a tragic end. You don't have time. No, you don't have no time. He can take your life like that. People died like that. You don't have to be sick to die either. Aneurysm, all kind of stuff. They could lose their mind. Dementia. A lot of stuff can happen, because when you play with Yah and that's your conversation. Yeah, you gotta be, because all of that, he hears all of that. His ears is attentive to everything. How could he call every word back into judgment if he doesn't hear it? So he hears it all. Somebody with that mindset, if they don't change their mind, they're going to have a tragic end, because there won't be no time. Why would he let you have time?
But is it because they're not teaching that right? That people are so messed up in the belief of it?
Yeah, a lot of the teaching in the Roman religion is not according to Torah. Because the ones who framed it and they took Paul's writings and then they put a spin on it and took it to the world. And it wasn't for them to take it to the world. You're not an Israelite, you don't take this to the world. He gave it to his disciples, then he gave it to Paul to go after Gentiles, because he knew Paul was able to get Gentiles, but Paul was a Benjamite. And then all the other Israelites. That's who he gave it to go take it to the world. But they took Paul's writings, because he wasn't a disciple, took his writings, and they put their own spin on it and took it to the world, which was wrong. So a lot of times the teaching that they have is a teaching from the framers, the ones who framed it, like we was studying them for a while. The ones who framed it, that's what they took to the world. So in that teaching, and you got that teaching still in apostolic Pentecostal churches. It's still the same teaching of the framers. So there's a lot of things that they taught. But one thing that we know for sure, having his Ruach, it'll change your life. It has to. Otherwise, the Ruach's not work. Because Abba Yah, like we read, Yahusha, he knew no sin. So if that Ruach is in you, how you know sin? How you keep sinning? It ain't Yahusha. Because he didn't know no sin. He didn't do no sin. But he became sin. Like it says, he became sin for us. So he wasn't a fornicator, but he became fornication. The sin of fornication. That's what he became. But he wasn't a fornicator. All right, any other questions? Comments? All right. We'll be back on the Shabbat. Stay warm. It's kind of cold here in Iowa. For those who are tuning in, because we do have guests that tune in, excuse me, tune in from Kenya. And they pick up our broadcast. So we say, Torah unto you, say Shalom unto you, and it's cold over here. And I was in Ghana last winter when Ghana had their winter, which was in the month of June. Yeah, we was over there in the month of June, which was the winter time for Ghana. And it was 84 degrees about every day. I think one day it got up to 86, and that was their winter. It's just that they get a lot of rain. Temperature is, they just get a lot of rain. In their summer, it's winter here. They have their summer now. They don't hardly get no rain. So they don't, we say winter, but over there, it's their raining season. They have their raining season, and then they have their dry season. But we have some that